Delilah Knox hadn't meant to touch the man's chest. It just kind of happened when his crooked tie called to her like a neon sign blinking, "Fix me." The ballroom glittered around her, filled with LA's most powerful names. Crystal chandeliers sparkled overhead, champagne flutes clinked, and the string quartet in the corner played some soft classical tune no one was really listening to. Delilah wasn't even supposed to be here. She was only attending the gala as a last-minute +1 for her boss, who bailed 10 minutes before arrival. Which is how she ended up standing near the grand staircase, watching a tall man with perfectly styled dark hair, a tuxedo that probably cost more than her rent for a year, and a completely crooked tie. She hesitated for half a second, then she walked right up to him. "Sorry," she said, gently reaching for the silk fabric. "This tie is driving me insane." He looked down at her, startled. Up close, he had sharp cheekbones, a strong jaw, and eyes so blue they looked unreal under the chandeliers. What?" he asked. "Hold still," she murmured, her fingers already straightening the knot. "Who tied this? A raccoon?" The man laughed, and it was deep, warm, like it came from somewhere real. "I had no idea it was that bad," he said. "It was tragic," she replied, giving the final tug. "There. Now you look like someone who owns the building." "I do," he said, blinking at her. "Own the building." "Oh," she froze. "Right, that's cool. I'm Nolan Strickland." Delilah blinked. She definitely knew that name. CEO of Strickland Dynamics, billionaire tech mogul, Forbes cover boy. The man who just let her manhandle his tie without security tackling her. She cleared her throat. "Delilah Knox, I don't usually assault neckwear, I swear." He smiled, not polite or forced, real, like she'd caught him off guard and he liked it. "Well, Delilah Knox," he said slowly, "you just saved me from being a public fashion disaster. How can I repay you?" "You could not have me arrested for touching a billionaire," she said lightly. "That'd be great." "Done," he said, eyes still on her. "Actually. Can I get you a drink?" She blinked. "You want to get me a drink? Unless you're here with someone?" "No," she said before she could think. "I mean, no, I'm not. I came alone, sort of. I was a +1, but the guy bailed and Nolan held out his hand. Come on." Champagne's better when you're not drinking it next to a fake Grecian column. Delilah stared at his hand for a second, then took it. His palm was warm, his grip firm. As he guided her through the crowd, people turned to look, not at him, at her. Whispers followed them like perfume. "Who's she?" "Is that Nolan Strickland's date? Did he bring someone tonight?" But Nolan didn't seem to care. He led her to a quieter corner where the lights were low and the music softer. "So," he said, handing her a glass of champagne. "What do you do, Delilah Knox, tie rescuer?" "I'm an assistant. Administrative, very glamorous stuff," she said, sipping the drink. He tilted his head. "You don't talk like most people in this room." "Because I'm not one of them." "That's not a bad thing," she laughed. "Easy for the billionaire to say." He leaned closer. "You always this blunt." "Pretty much." "I like that," he said, his voice lower now. Delilah's heart did something stupid in her chest. They talked for almost an hour, about nothing and everything. He told her about growing up in Seattle, about crashing his first startup in college. She told him about working 3 jobs through school, about her dream of running a nonprofit bookstore. At one point, he looked down at her hands. "You have ink on your fingers." "I was labeling donation books this morning," she said. He smiled. "You're not like anyone I've met. And you're not what I expected either," she admitted. "How so?" "I figured billionaires were colder." "You're kind of what?" She looked up at him. "Normal," he laughed again, softer this time. "That's a first." A server passed by with plates of tiny desserts. Nolan grabbed one and handed it to her. "You like chocolate?" "Yes," she said. "Then try this, it's from Paris." "The chef was flown in just for tonight." Delilah blinked. "Is that a flex?" "Absolutely," he said, grinning. She took a bite. It was ridiculous. "Okay, that's not fair," she said. "Now normal chocolate is ruined." "And now you have to see the rooftop," he said casually. She blinked. "Is that code for something?" He laughed. "No, there's a real rooftop with a view, come on." He took her hand again without asking. She let him. They took a private elevator up. When the doors opened, Delilah gasped. The city lights stretched out in every direction. A glass railing wrapped around the edge, a waiter in a white jacket stood nearby with more champagne. "You bring all your guests up here?" she asked. "No," he said, "just you." She turned to him. "Why?" "Because you touched my tie like it was the most natural thing in the world," he said. "And you made me laugh, and because for the first time in a long time I don't feel like I'm at a business event." Delilah looked into his eyes. "You're serious." "I am," he said, "and I don't care if it's insane. I want to see you again." She hesitated. "You don't even know me." "I know enough to want to," he said. "Say yes." She looked down at their linked hands, then back at him. "Yes," she said softly, and Nolan Strickland smiled like a man who just closed the most important deal of his life. The following morning, Delilah stood behind the counter of Little Finch Reads, a cozy corner bookstore in Silver Lake where she volunteered on weekends. The place smelled like old pages and cinnamon scones, the latter courtesy of the bakery next door. Her phone vibrated in her pocket for the third time, but she didn't check it. She knew who it was, Nolan Strickland. He'd walked her to her ride the night before, said something about wanting to see her again soon. She hadn't known what to say then, and she wasn't sure what to say now. The gala had felt like a dream too perfect, too unreal. Now, in the warm, dusty light of the bookstore, it felt 1,000 miles away. "Delilah," came a voice from behind the fiction display. "The copy of the bell jar you pulled for the donation bin, it's gone." She looked up at Marla, the store manager and resident Sylvia Plath enthusiast. "Gone like misplaced or gone like someone swiped it. Gone like I just watched a girl walk out with it in her bag, didn't pay." "Just left." Delilah rubbed her temples. "I'll go check the cameras." "No need, I know her, she's been in before, looks like she's living rough, I'll let it slide." Delilah paused. "What's her name?" "Cassie, I think. Sleeps in the alley behind the pizza place on Alvarado sometimes." Delilah exhaled slowly, then went to the back and grabbed one of the boxed care kits she kept behind the staff room door: travel toothbrush, hand wipes, protein bars, a clean pair of socks. She'd put it together last month after seeing another kid trying to warm their hands over a coffee cup outside the window. She left the bookstore 10 minutes later, walking 2 blocks until she found the girl, maybe 17, curled up near a stack of milk crates. Delilah crouched beside her. "Hey." "Cassie, right?" The girl tensed, her hair falling over her face. "I didn't take nothing." "You did," Delilah said gently, "but I'm not mad, I brought you something." She handed her the kit. Cassie blinked at it, then slowly took it. "You work at that bookstore?" "Sometimes." "It's not mine, but I help out." "Why help me?" Delilah shrugged. "Because people should. No one ever gets better when they're ignored." Cassie looked down at the kit like it was some kind of puzzle, then muttered a quiet thank you. Delilah stood, brushing gravel from her jeans. "Come by the shop next week. We've got more books, ones you don't have to steal." She walked away before Cassie could answer. By the time she got back to the store, her phone buzzed again. She finally checked it. "Nolan, lunch today, no suits, just us." She stared at the screen, thumb hovering. She could ignore it, pretend last night was a fluke. But her heart gave a little nudge, the kind that felt like possibility, not warning. She replied with a single word. "Where?" The address came a moment later. She frowned. It was in West Hollywood, but not a restaurant, a showroom. 2 hours later, after changing into fresh jeans and a pale blouse, she stood in front of a sleek glass building with a discreet brass plaque that read, Marcelli Atelier. Inside, the space gleamed with quiet opulence. Racks of designer pieces stood like art installations. A woman in a satin jumpsuit looked up from a velvet podium. "Miss Knox?" she asked. Delilah blinked. "Yes, Mr. Strickland is waiting for you in the private suite." She followed her through double doors into a room that looked more like a penthouse than a fitting space. Nolan stood near a mirrored wall, hands in his pockets, watching her with a look she couldn't quite decipher. "I thought we were getting lunch," she said. "We are," he murmured. "But first, I have something for you." He gestured to a rack behind him. On it hung 6 dresses, elegant, timeless, each one more stunning than the last. Rich silk, muted jewel tones, clean lines. "I don't understand." "I asked the designer to put together options for you. For Friday," he said. "What's Friday?" "The Strickland Foundation dinner. It's formal." "I want you to come as my guest." Delilah took a step back. "Nolan, I don't belong at something like that." Yes, you do. I don't have a driver. I don't wear couture. I don't know what fork to use. He walked toward her, voice low. None of that matters. I want you there. With me, she looked at the dresses, then him. Why me? Because when I talk to you, I forget I'm supposed to be someone else, he said, because you make me honest. And because I haven't stopped thinking about you since you fixed my tie. Her breath caught, but she forced herself to stay grounded. You barely know me. I'm trying to, he said, stepping closer. Let me, she hesitated, then finally said, one condition. Name it. I get to choose the dress myself, he laughed softly. Deal? After the fitting, they walked 2 blocks to a tiny Italian spot where the owner greeted Nolan with a kiss on both cheeks and a bottle of red wine that hadn't touched a menu in years. Over pasta and fresh focaccia, Delilah asked questions, real ones. Why tech? Because I like solving problems, he answered. I like puzzles, but lately, it's all meetings and markets, no joy. And this dinner on Friday, is it about joy? No, he admitted. It's about politics and image and donors. But with you there, it might feel different. She studied him in the candlelight. You're not what I expected. I get that a lot. No, I mean, you're not bored or jaded. You're just tired. He looked down at his glass. Is that what I seem like? Only to someone who's been tired too? He didn't say anything for a long moment. Then he reached across the table and took her hand. I want to know everything, he said quietly. Every part of your story. She stared at their linked fingers. That could take a while. I'm not in a hurry. And for the first time since walking into that ballroom, Delilah felt something she hadn't expected. Safe. Delilah stood at the edge of the marble terrace, her fingers laced around the chilled glass of elderflower spritzer. The foundation dinner was already in full swing behind her diamond-studded gowns brushing against polished floors, strings of laughter rising like champagne bubbles into the velvet night. But she needed air. She needed space to breathe. The gown she'd chosen, a deep bronze silk with a plunging back and subtle gold threadwork, felt like it belonged to another woman. A woman who'd always known how to move through nights like this with ease, who didn't worry about which fork to use or whether she'd be mistaken for waitstaff again. She didn't belong here, not really. And yet, Nolan had looked at her like she did. He had introduced her to senators, philanthropists, and a woman who ran a children's hospital in Morocco, as if Delilah were the most important person in the room. His hand had rested lightly on her lower back, guiding her through the crowd like she was made of something rare, but it was too much, too fast, and if she stayed inside any longer, she was going to drown in all of it. You escaped. Delilah turned at the sound of Nolan's voice. He stepped onto the terrace, unbuttoning his tuxedo jacket with practiced ease. His cufflinks caught the moonlight, tiny platinum squares, likely custom. He held 2 small white plates, each piled high with truffle risotto and grilled asparagus. You remembered I hate raw oysters, she said, taking one of the plates. I remember everything you say, he answered. They sat on the low stone bench, the city glittering beneath them. Delilah pushed the risotto around her plate. You ever get tired of pretending? Nolan didn't answer right away. He set his fork down, watching the skyline. I used to think that if I kept building things, companies, partnerships, headlines, I'd eventually feel like I belonged at tables like these. Turns out most of the people here are pretending too, she looked over at him. So why keep showing up? Because if I don't, someone else gets to decide where the money goes. Delilah considered that. So you play the game to change the rules. Exactly. She took a bite of the risotto. It was warm, buttery, and laced with something fragrant she couldn't name. You ever think about walking away? She asked. More than you'd think. Then why don't you? He turned to her, eyes darker in the moonlight. Because I hadn't met you yet. Silence fell between them, charged and fragile. Delilah set her plate aside. You don't know me well enough to say things like that. I know you think about people most others forget exist. I know you carry granola bars in your bag for strangers, and that you label book donations by theme even when no one asks. I know you believe in second chances. She stared at him, heart pounding. I also know you're scared, he added. You think I'm scared of you? No. I think you're scared of what this could mean, that maybe someone sees you, all of you. Delilah stood, crossing her arms. You don't get to say that like it's romantic. I've had enough people look at me and only see what they want. I'm not them, he said, rising to his feet. Then don't make promises you can't keep. I haven't promised anything, he said quietly, but I'm willing to if that's what it takes. She stared at him, breath catching. You're not serious. I am, he said. I didn't expect this. I wasn't looking for it. But the moment you fixed my tie, everything else stopped mattering. I don't want to be a project, she whispered. I don't want to be your escape from boardrooms and bad press. You're not an escape, he said. You're the only thing that feels real. A gust of wind swept her hair across her cheek. He stepped closer, brushing it back with a tenderness that made her shiver. I'm not asking for forever tonight, he said. I'm asking for the chance to prove myself. No suits, no headlines. Just me. Delilah looked up at him. And what if I don't want a billionaire? He smiled faintly. Then you'll be the first person who's ever told me no and made me grateful for it. Before she could speak, the terrace doors opened and a woman in a silver gown stepped out, her expression tight. Nolan, Senator Baum would like a word. He nodded but didn't move. Tell him I'll be in shortly. The woman hesitated, clearly unused to being dismissed, then turned and left. Delilah raised an eyebrow. That was brave. I don't care what he wants right now. You're going to make a lot of people uncomfortable. Good, he said. Maybe they'll finally stop pretending. Delilah exhaled, her pulse racing. I'm not good at this, she said. I don't know how to be someone's. Whatever this is. Then we'll figure it out together. She stepped back, studying him. You're really not going to let this go, are you? Not unless you ask me to, he said. And even then, I'll probably fight you on it. Delilah shook her head, half laughing. You're impossible. He took her hand. But I'm yours if you want me. She looked down at their joined hands, then at the skyline, then back at him, and for the first time she didn't feel like she was pretending. The afternoon sun filtered through the bookstore's tall front windows, casting a warm, amber hue across the hardwood floors. Delilah stood behind the counter, carefully stacking a set of children's books for a weekend literacy drive, her fingers lingering just a little longer than usual on the covers. Her thoughts had been tangled for days, caught somewhere between the memory of Nolan's words on the terrace and the reality of the world outside their golden bubble. The bell above the door chimed softly. She didn't look up at first until a familiar voice said, "Is this where I can find the woman who ruined every other dinner date I've had?" Delilah turned, heart thudding harder than it should have. Nolan stood in the doorway, dressed down in a navy sweater and dark jeans, holding a paper cup in one hand and a tote bag in the other. No security, no driver waiting outside, just him. You found the place, she said, surprised. I asked Marcelli. She made me promise not to show up in a tux. She's very protective of her designs. Nolan approached the counter, setting down the cup. Coffee, 1 sugar, no cream. And he added, lifting the tote, a donation. Delilah raised an eyebrow as he pulled out several pristine hardcover books, some signed, some with gold leaf lettering. These are first editions. I know, I had them in storage. They weren't doing anyone any good sitting in a glass case. She stared at him. You're giving these away, he shrugged. You once told me people don't get better when they're ignored. I figured it was time my library started paying attention. Delilah reached out, brushing her fingers over the worn spine of a vintage edition of The Secret Garden. You didn't come here just to bring books. No, he said. I didn't. She looked up at him. Then why? I've been thinking about what you said, about not wanting to be someone's project or escape, he began. And I realized you were right. I had to make sure I wasn't asking you to be a part of my world without understanding yours. She swallowed. And so I started looking into your grant application. Delilah froze. What? The one you submitted to the city council 6 months ago for the literacy nonprofit. Her stomach turned. How do you even know about that? I have a friend who does community development work. Your name came up in a meeting. He mentioned your proposal, the mobile reading van, the outreach programs for underserved neighborhoods, and how it had been shelved for lack of scalable infrastructure. Delilah crossed her arms. That's a polite way of saying it didn't have a rich backer. Nolan reached into his coat and pulled out a folded packet. He laid it on the counter. I revised it. She blinked. You what? I didn't change your ideas. I added the logistical framework they said was missing. Financial modeling, operational timelines, impact metrics. Everything they claimed you were lacking, it's all still yours, your name, your vision. Delilah stared at the packet. You did all that. I had help, he admitted. But yes, and I also made sure it got resubmitted. Under a foundation that won't let it die in committee. Her voice was barely a whisper. Why? Because you're the first person I've met who doesn't just talk about making the world better, you're already doing it, quietly, without fanfare. And I realized I didn't want to build another thing unless it was with someone like you. She stepped around the counter, hands trembling slightly. You can't just fix my whole life with one gesture. I'm not trying to fix it, he said. I'm trying to stand beside it. I know I come with complications, press, board meetings, a world you didn't ask for, but I don't want you to change for it. What if I can't handle it? Then we'll figure it out, together. Delilah looked up at him, eyes shining. You really think we can? I think the woman who walked up to a stranger and straightened his tie without fear can handle anything. She let out a shaky breath. You could have just called. I could have, he said, but I wanted you to see that this isn't just talk. I meant what I said. I want to build something real with you. For a long moment, neither of them moved. Then Delilah reached up and touched his collar, gently adjusting the edge of it with a smile. Still crooked, she whispered. Nolan's laugh was soft, full of something deeper. You're never going to let me live that down, are you? Not a chance. He leaned in then, slowly, giving her every second to pull away. She didn't. Their lips met with the quiet certainty of something earned, not rushed, not borrowed, but built from everything they hadn't expected. When they pulled apart, Delilah rested her forehead against his. You know this is insane, right? Completely. And you're okay with that, as long as you are, she smiled. I think I am. Later that week, the city council approved the proposal with full funding. 2 months after that, the first mobile literacy van rolled through East LA. Its sides painted with hand-drawn illustrations by local kids, and its shelves stocked with books from Nolan's collection. And every Friday, without fail, Nolan met Delilah at the bookstore with coffee and a new box of donations. He never wore a tie again without asking her to fix it, and she never let him forget who he was when no one else was watching. Rain tapped against the windows of Nolan's penthouse, the kind that blanketed the city in silver haze and made the skyline look like a watercolor. The fireplace crackled behind them, low and steady, casting a warm glow over the living room's minimalist design. Delilah stood near the floor-to-ceiling glass, barefoot, wrapped in one of Nolan's oversized sweaters, watching the clouds blur the city lights. He came up behind her without a sound, resting his chin gently on her shoulder. Still waiting for it to sink in, he asked softly. She didn't answer right away. Her fingers traced the edge of the glass. A month ago, I was trying to fix the copier at the office with a paperclip and chewing gum. Now I'm standing in a penthouse with a man who just helped launch a literacy van that made 3 stops today. Nolan kissed the side of her neck. You're the reason it launched. I just opened a few doors. She turned to face him, her expression unreadable. I keep waiting for the catch. There isn't one. I don't mean you, she said quietly. I mean life. It's never been this good. He brushed a damp strand of hair from her cheek. Maybe it's just your turn. Delilah leaned into him, her voice barely above a whisper. I used to think people like you lived in glass towers, untouchable, perfect, but you're not. You're messy and tired and stubborn and weirdly obsessed with folding socks in pairs. He laughed into her hair. You notice that? I live here now. I notice everything. It had happened gradually. First a drawer, then a toothbrush. A favorite mug placed beside his in the cabinet without discussion. One night she forgot to leave, then didn't want to, and just like that, she was home. As the rain thickened, Nolan pulled her toward the couch where a stack of grant proposals and architectural sketches lay scattered. He handed her a sheet of paper. What's this? She asked. A building, he said. Or it will be. I bought the lot on Sunset in Marlow, 2 stories, glass facade. I want to turn it into a permanent literacy center. Reading rooms, mentorship programs, after-school support. The van's a start, but it needs a home base. Delilah's eyes widened. You're serious? I want you to run it, fully funded, no strings. Total creative control. She stared at the drawing, overwhelmed. You can't just, I'm not just anything, he interrupted gently. You've spent your whole life making do with scraps. I want to give you everything you need to build something that lasts. Delilah set the paper down and looked at him. This is bigger than books, Nolan, I know. It's kids who have never owned their own story, parents who can't read their children bedtime books. People who have been talked over their whole lives finally having a voice. That's why you're the one to lead it. She took a long breath. I'll need a board, I'll need staff, I already set up the foundation. You pick the team, you write the mission. I'll stand in the background unless you need me. Delilah sat back, stunned. You really meant it. You're not trying to save me. I'm trying to walk beside you while you save everyone else. She reached for his hand. I don't know what I ever did to deserve you. He kissed her palm. You made me remember who I was before I started measuring success in numbers. They sat in silence for a moment, the only sound the rain and the fire. Then Delilah said, I want to do something. Nolan raised an eyebrow. What is it? She got up, disappeared into the bedroom, and returned holding a small velvet box. He frowned, confused. What is that? She opened it to reveal a gold tie clip engraved with a single word in her handwriting, real. I had it made, she said, for the next time you wear a tie. Just so you remember. He took the box, swallowed hard, then stood. You're going to make me cry in my own penthouse. Good, she said. Now you know how I felt when I saw that building sketch. Nolan looked at her, eyes full of something fierce and quiet. Marry me, Delilah's breath hitched. What? I don't have a speech, he said. I didn't plan it, but I know I wake up and I breathe easier because you're beside me. I look at the world and it's brighter. You've changed everything I thought I knew about love. She stared at him, her voice barely steady. Are you sure? He stepped closer. I've never been more sure of anything. No rings, no crowds, just us. Say yes, and I'll spend the rest of my life making sure you never have to fix another crooked tie unless you want to. Delilah let out a shaky laugh. You're absolutely ridiculous, and madly in love with you, she nodded, tears in her eyes. Then yes. He pulled her into his arms, holding her like the answer had stitched something back together inside him. Outside, the rain lessened to a soft drizzle, and the sky cracked open, revealing the faintest glow of stars. 3 months later, they stood beneath a canopy of wildflowers in a private garden Nolan had flown her grandmother in to see. Delilah wore a dress she'd found in a vintage shop tucked behind little Finch reeds. Nolan wore no tie, but the gold clip sat proudly on his lapel. Their vows were whispered, not performed. The guests were friends, not names from any list. And when they kissed, it felt like something old had ended and something entirely new had begun. They spent their honeymoon in a restored lighthouse on the coast, where they read books out loud by the fire and planned the center's launch. Nolan spent hours sketching ideas for a rooftop reading nook. Delilah taught him to make coffee in a French press. Neither of them checked a single email. When they returned, the literacy center opened to a line that wrapped around the block. Children claimed beanbags and colored bookmarks. Volunteers served cocoa. Delilah stood at the podium, her voice steady as she told the crowd that everyone deserved a story worth telling and a place to find it. Nolan stood beside her, not as a benefactor or a billionaire, but as the man who had finally found something he couldn't measure with numbers. Love. Real, unshakable, ordinary magic. And for them, it was only the beginning of everything.